January 14, 1944, dusk, somewhere just east of Rome. The late winter light fell hazily across the dry fields. A distant smell of cold dust and smoke lingered in the wind. The silver fuselages of the Lockheed P-38 Lightnings sat idle on the concrete apron, engines cooling, propellers still, their polished surfaces tinted by the last rays of a dying sun. A lone mechanic crouched beneath one of the twin booms, a toolbox open beside him, fingers deftly working unseen wires running from the engine bay to the cockpit. In that quiet moment, the only sound the distant hum of Italian cicadas and the soft clink of socket against metal, the fate of those P-38s as just another American fighter was about to change forever. For months, German pilots had laughed when Allied intelligence reported modest numbers of P-38s in the Mediterranean, untested in the brutal dances against Messerschmitt Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf 190s. Luftwaffe field reports dismissed them as lightly armored, under-energized, twin-boom curiosities, unworthy of serious threat. The standard view: give them a burst, chase them deep, and they would either bleed speed or fall back. Against seasoned German fighter aces, hardened by years over France, Russia, and North Africa, the P-38 was expected to be outmatched, a production machine, not a pilot's mount, a twin-engine novelty, not a nimble dogfighter. But the P-38 Lightning carried more than factory bolts and rivets. It carried American resourcefulness, the capacity to transform through adaptation. That evening, under fading light, a mechanic's wrench turned quietly the axis of aerial war. The following dawn, the squadron's first mission unfolded over the Tuscan skies. As the P-38s climbed, the plume of their contrails wove against a soft, gray horizon. Inside those aluminum skins, modifications from the previous night hummed, subtle rewiring of ignition timing, adjustments to the intercooler shutters, calibration of the superchargers for sustained high-altitude performance. The cockpit gauges, oil pressure, manifold temperature, held steady even as the altimeter climbed past 12,000 feet. The repeated clink of metal from the night before had become the silent heartbeat of mechanical precision. Below them, Bf-109s from a rotating Luftwaffe detachment, fresh from refueling and eager for action, sought the climbing dots of American fighters. They expected sluggish twin-engine heavies, easy prey for their single-engine nimbleness. Their radios buzzed with confident chatter. Fuel gauges and bomber escort orders were exchanged. The air hung thick with Bruno tones and clipped German commands. But when the engagement began, disbelief replaced smug calculation. The P-38 pilots dived and climbed with unexpected agility. One after another, flashes appeared, tracer-threaded bursts, enemy fighters disintegrating into spirals of smoke and flame overhead Tuscan ridgelines. German pilots called it lighting up like fireworks. Others spoke of a ghost squadron no one saw coming. Field reports from the 7. Jagddivision later made note, Ungewöhnlich Geschwindigkeit, fast wie ein Jäger aus dem Nix. Wir hatten kein Ziel zum Anvisieren. Unusual speed, almost like a hunter from nowhere. We had no target to aim at. The mocking laughter evaporated into urgent radio transmissions ordering retreat. Few details escaped debriefing records. The P-38s carried slightly leaner fuel-air mixtures, adjusted supercharger settings that allowed sustained speed during high G maneuvers, and a rewiring that eliminated ignition lag when throttles closed, all done in that small apron mechanic's toolbox the night before. The mechanic who stayed hidden under the twin booms had recalibrated vigor into a production airframe. He had taken American mass production and folded into it the quiet ingenuity of a craftsman. The twin-engined Lightning bolts transformed, not through factory retrofit, but through human adaptation. As dawn heightened, the squadron returned to base. Pilots' faces, lit by cold exhaustion and adrenaline, bore the silent horror of those who witnessed sudden death raining from above. On the ground, the mechanic emerged from beneath the aircraft, wiped sweat and oil with a rag, closed the toolbox with a soft snap. Nearby, men gathered, eyes curious, some shaken. No joy. No bravado. Just heavy breathing and respect, for a weapon not born dead-on, but brought alive by care and recalibration. 2 days later, the Luftwaffe detachment was withdrawn from the sector. Their casualty lists were long, their competence shaken. German propaganda outlets dismissed reports of miraculous American fighters, but within the Luftwaffe officer corps, whispered questions began. Could doctrine, so rigid and codified, counter ingenuity born from impatience and practicality? Could a single wrench turn rewrite the rules of the skies? Colonel reports recorded growing unease. These P-38s do not behave as machines built in Detroit. They fly as if crafted by those who understand wind and altitude. Their pilots fight differently. The P-38 had always been understood as a high-altitude interceptor and escort fighter, suited to bomber cover and long-range strikes against shipping. Now, it revealed itself as a supple hunter, a disciplined predator shaped not by design bureaucracy, but by human hands on the ground. Elsewhere, American pilots whispered of the ghost wrench that turned ordinary lightning bolts into devils of the sky. Some claimed that the identical two-seater P-38F flown weeks earlier felt sluggish, unreliable. The same plane, under the new configuration, danced curves tight enough to chase down Bf-109s at 12,000 feet, still holding speed through dives and climbs. The symbolic object returned, that toolbox lying open under the silver wings. Each socket, wrench, and calibrated gauge inside it represented American democratic abundance. Freedom to tinker, to question the manual, to adapt without rigid chain of command. The toolbox became a quiet emblem of American ingenuity, the kind that factories mass-produced parts for, but men personalized with sweat and skill. Within weeks, the Mediterranean airspace changed. Luftwaffe patrols shifted away from Tuscan planes. Bf-109 units demanded reinforcements. American aircrews saw more success, more tolerance from bomber squadrons, more aggressive escort calls. Pilots grew emboldened. The P-38, once considered a secondary asset in European theaters, re-earned attention. Fighter groups began replicating the wiring mod and supercharger calibrations. Ground crews studied the blueprint, and the toolbox trick became doctrine, unofficial, silent, but powerful. German reports, intercepted by British codebreakers, recorded a phrase repeated across different units. "Wir verstehen nicht, womit wir es zu tun haben, dies Maschine bewegt sich wie lebendig." We do not understand what we are dealing with. This machine moves as if alive. The shift was not just mechanical. It was ideological. German pilots, trained in formation discipline, doctrine-based combat, found themselves outmatched by machines that moved unpredictably, by pilots unshackled from rigid procedure, by ground crews who refused to accept factory defaults as final. On the ground, in makeshift airfields scattered across Allied-controlled Italy, the silent hum of improved P-38 engines became a steady backdrop. In crew's quarters, men spoke softly with each other about that night under the wings, of soldered wires and recalibrated gauges. A new respect emerged, not just for steel and rivets, but for human hands. For the adaptability of ordinary men in extraordinary circumstances. For America's promise that even mass-produced soldiers and planes could be reshaped by individual care, personal initiative, and collective freedom to innovate. By summer 1944, the P-38 Lightning, once overshadowed by newer designs and heavier fighters, reclaimed a place in Allied strategy. Its modified variants escorted bombers over the Low Countries, protected ground advances in France, and strafed retreating German convoys. Luftwaffe pilots carried a new kind of caution in their bones, not just for Allied numbers, but for Allied unpredictability. Their trained precision, built on doctrine and rigidity, now collided with improvisation and human adaptability. In Berlin, some officers argued quietly for structural reform. Not in propaganda, those messages would never see the light. Rather, in internal memos, the American war machine is not simply built, it is grown. Their pilots do not fly rigid lines, they flow through space. Their weapons are forged in factories, but their strength comes from men who treat each bolt, each wire as alive. That admission, never public, never official, marked a shift. The Axis understanding of superiority had cracked. In the twilight of war, as Allied forces pushed into Germany itself, captured Luftwaffe reports and pilot testimonies were catalogued. Many admitted something they had never said at the time. They underestimated the quiet mechanic beneath the P-38. They dismissed ingenuity as improvised, personal tinkering as irrelevant. But the war remembered. And historians, combing through after-action reports and field logs, began to reframe what American strength really meant. Not numbers, not factories, but flexibility, the ability of everyday men to adapt, to improve, to fight not just with tools, but with thought. The toolbox remained symbolic long after the last engine shut down. In wartime photographs, the battered case appears in hangars, over crates, leaning against fuselages. Its scuffed surface, stamped with unit serials, became an emblem, quiet, unglorious, essential. It spoke of democracy not as a banner, but as a principle, that ordinary citizens, given tools and freedom, shape destiny not by orders, but by ideas. As spring 1945 dawned over shattered European cities, and the war's end loomed, the story of the P-38 Lightning and its ghost mechanic gained whispers in Allied war correspondences. It was never proclaimed in grand parades. No official citation honored the toolbox under the wing. But in the memory of those who flew, who maintained, who watched silver lightning bolts slice through smoky skies, the truth hung clear. A single act of care, a single turn of a wrench, had turned mockery into fear, underestimation into reverent silence. And so, as the last P-38s rolled out onto airfields for decommissioning, as Allied squadrons greeted peace with tired wings and quiet pride, the legacy remained. The memory of that mechanic, crouched beneath a wing in fading light, reshaping wires, recalibrating engines, turning a factory-built aircraft into a predator of the skies. A reminder that when individuals are trusted with tools and freedom, even mass-produced machines can carry the unpredictable force of human will. In the end, the war was signed not only with treaties, but with that subtle shift, from doctrine to adaptability, from numbers to ingenuity. The P-38 Lightning's transformed roar echoed a larger truth, that freedom, in the hands of the willing, becomes more dangerous than any uniform, more powerful than any assembly line. And the once-laughed mechanic's wrench, still stained with oil and time, became a quiet testament to the belief that in war, as in peace, human creativity can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. Months after the Tuscan skies witnessed the P-38s metamorphosis, Allied command began to notice an unexpected rhythm in the Mediterranean air campaign. Mission debriefs recorded that Luftwaffe interception rates had dropped sharply, bomber losses declined, fighter escort effectiveness rose. Pilots spoke of encountering machines that seemed alive, but beneath that description lay the truth. Men had infused life into metal. Ground crews had become improvisers, problem solvers, shaping each Lightning for maximum performance. Reports from Sicily and southern Italy noted that American fighters executed maneuvers previously thought impossible for twin-engine designs, closing the gap between agility and firepower. German pilots, meanwhile, struggled with cognitive dissonance. Their doctrine, forged in the fires of Europe's skies, had promised mastery through strict formation, timing, and technical training. Yet over Italian hills and fields, those principles faltered. Even experienced aces, men with hundreds of kills over France and Russia, found themselves outmatched not by numbers, but by adaptability. Records intercepted by Allied intelligence detailed frustrated German chatter. "We cannot predict their patterns. They adapt too quickly. Their aircraft respond before we can react." The mockery once directed at American mechanics, seen as amateurs with stupid tinkering, gave way to anxious fear. In quiet mess halls, German officers scratched notes on the unpredictability of the P-38s, noting that the perceived chaos of American preparation had created unprecedented order in execution. The symbolism of the mechanic's toolbox persisted, silently threading through every squadron's operations. The tools represented more than adjustments or minor technical tweaks. They embodied the democratic principle that ordinary men could exercise judgment, initiative, and creativity. Every socket and gauge became a metaphor for American ingenuity applied in real time under pressure. Pilots internalized the lesson. Survival depended not on rigid manuals but on a cultivated understanding of machinery, environment, and the instincts honed through practice and experience. By autumn, the influence of this mechanic's interventions began to ripple into strategic considerations. Squadron leaders proposed new training modules emphasizing improvisation alongside conventional instruction. Mechanics received official commendations for innovation, though the original ghost mechanic remained unheralded. His work, however, had shifted expectations. The Allies now recognized that a single individual's intervention could dramatically affect operational effectiveness. This realization subtly undermined Axis confidence, exposing the limitations of doctrine when confronted with adaptable opponents. Throughout the Mediterranean theater, pilots began noting a distinct psychological shift. Enemy fighters, once emboldened by rigid advantage, became hesitant. Their approaches grew predictable as they attempted to counter the Lightning's unpredictable performance. American aircrews seized the initiative, exploiting the new dynamic. Mission diaries describe the quiet confidence that emerged, a calm born from witnessing firsthand the potency of adaptability over pure force. The P-38, once dismissed as a novelty, became a tangible symbol of how American ingenuity could translate into battlefield dominance. Even beyond immediate combat, the cultural impact was clear. Allied strategy increasingly valued the interplay between machinery and human decision-making. Intelligence reports repeatedly emphasized the superiority of crews who understood the spirit of their tools, and historians later identified this period as pivotal in demonstrating how individual initiative could amplify industrial strength. German and Italian observers quietly acknowledged that the American approach, combining freedom, skill, and improvisation, produced a level of operational flexibility that traditional European doctrines could not easily counter. As the war pressed toward its climax, the P-38 story evolved into legend within squadron circles. Pilots spoke of the twin-engine fighter with reverence, attributing successes not solely to firepower or speed, but to the quiet human agency embedded in its design and maintenance. The twin booms that once seemed cumbersome now symbolized reliability, adaptability, and the ingenuity that flourished in a democratic environment. Each flight became a testament to the principle that in war, as in society, human creativity and initiative could decisively reshape outcomes, sometimes more than sheer numbers or technological superiority ever could. The weeks that followed saw the P-38 transform from an object of skepticism into a psychological weapon. Allied pilots carried the confidence born not only of superior speed and climb rate, but of witnessing the machine respond intuitively to the guidance of men who understood it deeply. Flight logs described tight turns over the Apennines where German Me-109s found themselves outmaneuvered, their predictable strafing runs disrupted, their formations fractured. What had begun as minor mechanical ingenuity now manifested as tactical supremacy. Every sortie reinforced the lesson: adaptability, not rigid doctrine, dictated the air. German intelligence began to record the subtle but critical pattern emerging. Pilots noted that American lightnings never followed a uniform rhythm. Each engagement differed slightly, a nuance of personal adjustment applied in real time. Observers remarked on maneuvers previously deemed impossible for a twin-engine fighter: rapid climbing reversals, near-vertical dives, instantaneous throttle adjustments. These were not features of the aircraft alone but of the human understanding embedded within it. The so-called stupid wire trick became a symbol of American resourcefulness, a single mechanic's insight amplifying the collective effectiveness of entire squadrons. By late 1943, Italian and German reports quietly acknowledged the psychological shift. Axis aircrews hesitated to commit fully to engagements, measuring each approach against unpredictable lightning tactics. Loss reports revealed that attacks once executed with certainty now faltered, yielding unexpected casualties and missed opportunities. German pilots, trained in the ethos of precision and repetition, confronted the unsettling truth: American ingenuity was not haphazard. It was deliberate, adaptive, and terrifyingly effective. Mockery of the mechanic's tinkering evolved into wary respect, tinged with fear, recorded meticulously in the margins of reconnaissance summaries. Allied commanders recognized the broader implications. The success of the P-38 under improvisation highlighted a strategic principle: industrial capacity alone could not guarantee superiority. Human creativity multiplied mechanical advantage. Mechanics received formal commendations, but the story remained largely unsung publicly, a quiet testament to ingenuity's role in modern warfare. Pilots internalized the lesson as a creed. Mastery over machines was inseparable from mastery of self, observation, and improvisation under pressure. The P-38, equipped and fine-tuned by attentive hands, became more than a fighter. It embodied American adaptability, blending the ingenuity of civilians with the rigor of military training. On the ground, Axis morale subtly shifted. Reports filtered through to high command revealed confusion and disbelief. What had been dismissed as a fluke now suggested a systematic American approach that could not be easily countered. The twin-engine fighters, with their wire adjustments, minor mechanical tweaks, and responsive handling, became symbols of a nation's unique military culture, a culture where ordinary men, guided by experience and intellect, could decisively challenge convention. The lessons of the Mediterranean air battles would echo in subsequent campaigns, influencing tactics, training, and the psychological calculus of both sides. As 1944 approached, the P-38s legend spread among Allied airmen. Veterans recounted the early flights over Sicily and Italy not merely as victories in combat, but as affirmations of the principle that freedom to experiment, to innovate, to understand one's tools, could overcome rigid orthodoxy. The mechanic's work, small wires, reconfigured controls, a patchwork of ingenuity, came to symbolize a larger truth. in American hands, machinery was not static, it was a partner in combat, responsive to skill, observation, and judgment. The Axis powers learned, painfully and belatedly, that underestimating the human element in American military culture was a fatal mistake. The P-38, soaring above Mediterranean valleys at dawn, became a cinematic emblem of this principle. Film and photographs captured its silhouette cutting through misted skies, engines whining with precise cadence, pilots' faces focused and serene. The twin booms, once considered unwieldy, now framed a narrative of ingenuity and adaptability, a visual metaphor for a culture where the individual's initiative could redefine technological limitations. Each mission etched into memory the psychological imprint of unpredictability, turning mechanical success into strategic advantage and human creativity into enduring legend. Dawn broke over the rugged Italian coastline with a soft, gray light filtering through low-hanging clouds. Pilots of the 27th Fighter Squadron prepared for another sortie, the P-38s lined like sentinels on the dew-soaked tarmac. Engines hummed with restrained power, each note a prelude to the precision and chaos they would deliver into enemy skies. The air smelled of oil, fuel, and damp earth, a sensory tapestry that grounded men accustomed to the unpredictable rhythms of combat. In these moments, the plane was more than steel. It was a companion, an extension of a pilot's instincts, honed by countless flights over the Mediterranean valleys. German reconnaissance planes had observed the formations, noting every turn and climb with clinical precision. Yet reports arrived to Berlin and Rome with a growing unease. The P-38s executed maneuvers that seemed inconsistent, yet devastatingly effective. Enemy pilots expected predictable patterns, the mechanical rigidity that doctrine and training demanded. What they encountered instead was fluid, responsive, and deeply intelligent, an improvisation born not from chaos but from mastery. One stupid wire adjustment, initially dismissed as trivial, now had cascading effects across the battlefield. Squadrons over Sicily began recording the subtle advantages: split-second reversals during dogfights, throttle tweaks that allowed vertical climbs faster than anticipated, and coordinated attacks executed with uncanny timing. Each mechanical adjustment, each improvisational tweak, amplified the human skill of the pilots, creating a synergy that blurred the line between man and machine. Axis pilots, trained in the doctrine of repetition and predictability, faced a new reality. American ingenuity could not be contained, quantified, or replicated by rigid protocol. In the aftermath of engagement reports, German intelligence noted the psychological impact. Pilots hesitated, overcalculated, and sometimes withdrew prematurely, unsure how to counter the unpredictable maneuvers of the Lightnings. Casualty counts rose. Missions that once succeeded with minimal risk now ended with unexpected losses. The mechanics wire became legend among Allied ranks, not merely as a technical fix but as a symbol of American adaptability, the embodiment of a culture that empowered individual initiative to multiply collective effectiveness. Within Allied ranks, the narrative grew richer. Pilots spoke not just of victories but of the philosophy underpinning them. Observation, improvisation, and intimate understanding of their tools were as vital as ammunition or ordnance. Mechanics were celebrated quietly, their ingenuity recognized in whispered stories and commendations, each acknowledgement reinforcing a key wartime principle: freedom to adapt was a force multiplier in combat. The P-38 was no longer a mere fighter, it was a manifestation of the uniquely American approach to warfare. Axis commanders, forced to recalibrate their expectations, began documenting the new doctrine they could not fully counter. Flexibility, adaptability, and personal initiative, once considered minor factors, emerged as decisive elements in Mediterranean air campaigns. Reports trickled into Berlin and Rome noting, with growing anxiety, that American pilots did not simply follow doctrine. They improvised, innovated, and responded with a fluid intelligence that no mechanized formula could match. A single mechanic's insight now symbolized a cultural difference that would reverberate far beyond Sicily or Italy. Even as the battles continued, the symbolic image of the P-38, twin booms slicing through gray skies, engines whirring in precise yet unpredictable cadence, etched itself into memory. Photographs captured pilots hunched over controls, faces marked by concentration and fatigue, yet calm, composed, and determined. The plane's silhouettes became iconic, a visual testament to ingenuity over orthodoxy, human skill shaping technological potential. Axis observers could note the victories, but the deeper lesson, the American fusion of creativity, freedom, and personal mastery, was almost invisible to them, yet it changed the dynamics of engagement permanently. Each mission reinforced this unspoken truth. In America, machinery was not static. It was an instrument of human thought, honed through practice, intuition, and experience. Doctrine alone could not counter ingenuity, and the P-38, manipulated by hands attuned to both steel and strategy, became the messenger of that reality. Pilots returned from sorties not with pride alone, but with a quiet confirmation. Adaptability, observation, and personal mastery could eclipse doctrine, numbers, and preconceptions, reshaping the battlefield one flight at a time. As the Mediterranean sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the skies in muted gray shadows, the P-38s returned from another grueling sortie. Pilots stepped down from the cockpits, faces streaked with sweat, soot, and fatigue, yet eyes carried a calm confidence born of mastery. The planes, slick with condensation and exhaust, stood as silent witnesses to the week's relentless precision. Each wire tweak, each improvised maneuver, had accumulated into something far greater than technical adjustment. It had become a statement of intent, a manifesto of American ingenuity in the theater of war. German and Italian commanders, poring over reports in dimly lit rooms back in Berlin and Rome, could not reconcile what they saw. Losses that should have been avoidable, engagements that defied prediction, and pilots who maneuvered with both instinct and intellect, a combination their rigid doctrines could neither anticipate nor contain. Notes circulated among Axis officers, often tinged with frustration: "They do not fight as expected. They fight as they choose." In these words lay the recognition of a deeper truth, one that mechanical superiority and hierarchical training alone could not suppress.